Well, here we are. Amazing conspiracy theorist, realist, live, forgetting his own title of his show. Anyway, before I start with all that, I just want to say welcome if you're new here. And yes, I am wearing lipstick and eyeliner, and I'm a man, and oh my god. I think one of the first things I want to talk about is how focused people in the alternative community have been on people that are transgender and just people expressing gender just in their fashion in a different way than most people, as I'm doing. And it's so looked down upon, and I get it, and I think that I have no idea about the things that are going on in terms of the occult and gender identity and, the manipulation of the sacred principle of gender. They think that I'm one of the people that's engaged in that because I'm just doing some androgynous shit, which, god damn it. It's amazing when you start doing the great work, you feel like you're going to find a solution to the way you're broadcasting, and then as soon as you start doing it, something interrupts you. But I think I got that under control at the moment, and we'll go from there. So, gender, and the gender war. So, I'm aware of what's going on with the occult in terms of what Mark Passio has gone over as the satanic epi-eugenics agenda. I'm aware of that. And I think that there are people in the truth and freedom community who are not even aware of such an agenda. They just think they understand the agenda behind gender, but they really don't. And they just think like, oh, well, this is just a bunch of boys wearing skirts and it's horrible and it's ungodly. And that's more like the old school fake ass Christian, perspective on it. So again, remember that when someone dressing a certain way, doing something that they want to do with their own body, they're not harming anyone else. So, I mean, and I'm against transgenders doing a striptease at a preschool or in front of little kids and minors and things like that. I mean, if you're like 8 years old and you watch Rocky Horror Picture Show, is it the end of the world? No. Really, it's just, movies and entertainment and art. I mean, things that just need to be seen, and just people need a eclectic variety of, experiences and tastes and things, just to formulate at least some kind of worldly perspective. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm not for any of the outrageous things we've seen, like in terms of sports, and there being, like a huge dude who's just identifying as a woman, beating women at other sports. That's not what it's about. And for me, I'm sure that, I'm hated amongst the LGBTQ as much as I am by the so-called truthers who don't like my androgynous style. And so, yeah, they hate me. They don't even know they hate me. But once they get to know me, it's like, oh, man, I thought you were just another clone of the left-wing propaganda machine. You're not, But there is one friend I have who's actually trans, and she's pretty cool about, we've had discussions and we've connected on things. We don't see eye to eye on everything, but like she at least hears me out, and I get their gender wrong all the time, and I'm just doing it just to be polite. But it's like, I don't know why. I could understand why, as a man, you'd wanna, or as a woman, like if you felt like, I'm more identified with your animus, or it's I'm mixing the two up, but there's the inner female for the male, and there's the inner male for the female. This is a psychological fact, it's the animus and the anima. And so we have a little experience of the opposite gender built into our soul structure, if you will. So yeah, I mean, sometimes I'm going through life and I'm, sometimes it's just like you'll be in the middle of doing something and then all of a sudden it's just like you get a flash of what you as the opposite gender would be doing if you were doing that same thing. And and I think that people might attach to that experience and say like, well, this might mean that I am that gender and that I'm trapped in this other gender. And so if they choose to express it in a different way and that's helps them balance their inner masculine and feminine, then that's a good thing. I mean, that's so rare today because we're going to get into what they're not discussing, which is the science of masculinity and femininity as an energetic component within the universe. And, just seeing the universe as something that's, energy exchange and energy responding to energy and, magnetizing. And so, you know, it's something that people, you know, what I was, what I'm mainly going to try to get into today is social Darwinism, and the materialist atheist indoctrination and programming that, just gets repeated and so popularized in culture and thought of as the most cutting edge of thinking, when they don't even, when it's just like all the philosophies, ancient philosophies and ancient texts and, mysteries are just not even brought in. It's just like, well, now everything's modernized and we've figured it out and we're just starting from scratch and we have this materialist atheist model and we know that we're just another animal. We're not going to be, too modest. And, of course it's like, it's so weird how like one false paradigm will feed into the other. So it's like, you know, it's all about, putting yourself down. It's like saying like you are just an animal, you're lower, like everything else is more important. And it's like, well, it's putting your higher self down and then, allows you to elevate your more hedonic self because, you know of all that with all that you're suppressing and being asked to suppress by society, that creates like a sort of like a gap. And I don't know what the right word for it is. Kind of like you're repressing so much that it like comes out, like your need to be free comes out in kind of insane ways. And so yeah, it's just because, check your carbon footprint. It's always just these commands and, like societal pressures to do things that the establishment says is going to make things better, but it's just making things better for their agendas. And if you're not aware of those agendas, you won't even know. So getting back to so what I was saying to my friend who's transgender, and this kind of helped them understand, is that like, I said, kind of divert from the community as an LGBTQ. I divert from the community because I'm not really coming at it from a materialist atheist and social Darwinist perspective. I'm coming at it from a perspective of masculine and feminine and gender. Is the sacred principle of gender is that all things have gender. And so, and all it is it's an expression, it's an energetic expression that's made manifest in beings that are spirit in the flesh beings. And this is the energy that are emotional and that we can play around with and egoically identify with. And so it's it's the thing that we're ever trying to balance. And then as we're trying to balance, we learn about the positive and negative aspects of femininity. I mean, look at all these tarot cards. Well, I can't really, it's hard for me to angle the camera while still looking at it. I mean, they might not be the right way, like as far as the way they're facing and all that, but it's hard to demonstrate what I was trying to demonstrate. But I mean, look no further than the tarot cards to understand that this is a map of the human soul and that these different archetypes are manifestations of masculine and feminine energy. And so if you watch my previous episodes with Maria West, we went even deeper into that type of stuff. So but yeah, that's where I divert from the LGBTQ, is that there it's not so much that we are, oh my god, like how dare we be gender bending. It's more so like, well, they're coming at the gender bending thing from a non spiritual perspective in a lot of cases, and like a purely left brain, you know, in the negative mode kind of thinking about it. So yeah, and so a lot of people have problems with conspiracy realism and occultism is because we're not going to say, oh, your opinion is valid, and your belief is acceptable. It's like, no, there is an objective truth, and whoever is more aligned with that wins the day. So yeah, it's just, it's harder and harder to just be like, it's like, no, it's like, and so we're gonna get into that now. It's hard. The further I go along in life, the harder it is for me to even identify and empathize with people that are just not aware of what we are, the spirit and the flesh beings. And then of course our history is very, on this planet as human beings, it's a dark one and a light one, I mean, depending on how you look at it. But it's been, in the recent epoch, has been pretty dark in terms of the way knowledge about authentic spirituality is held back. And so there would be more of a merger of physical sciences with the science of spirituality, and that would make sense. And we'd be able to build some type of holistic civilization around that, and it would be cooperative and voluntaristic. And so it's something that's possible if people would just realize that religion is the problem. It's like organized religion, but also religions like the belief in the legitimacy of authority and the legitimacy of just purely negating any respect or understanding of energetic principles and hermetic principles, and even something like quantum physics or free energy technology, like how something like that would work. There are still people that believe that, like, oh, how does it even work? Everything's a mystery. And of course there's solipsism, which we've gone over all this in previous episodes. So hopefully, people can have the sense to go back and check out the stuff that I've covered before. Because I'm not selling anything on this channel. I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. There's so much information about conspiracy and occult knowledge out there that, like, I've already mentioned some of the best sources you can go to in the first episode of my series. And I just don't have a lot of patience for just really any sort of people that aren't awake. It's like, all right, and it sucks, and it doesn't suck, but it's just, at this point, it's like, people that know me know that you want to discuss anything going on in the world, go ahead, but I'm not going to give you any credence to it. I'm not going to give you any support with what your thought is on that, because as far as I'm concerned, you're in a mental illness condition of mind control. And we just can't. I just want people, and it's actually been good, with my relationships and friendships now, is that, like, people, before that, I didn't have that boundary quite set. Now I'm just like, yeah, I mean, not interested in being, worldview poisoned. And I will not hold back and say that the people that are worldview poisoned, that's the case. And of course they don't care, because they, if they care, they wouldn't be in such a poisoned worldview in the first place. So at the end of the day, people don't really care that much about the truth, or it's certainly hard for even me to sacrifice doing the things that I think are fun, to do things like this that are right. And it's just, I've been really busy, because I think that just putting myself out there by doing the things that I love, hopefully it can create some type of positive effect for others that makes them want to change and awaken to more esoteric things, and natural law and the occult. It just my aura might just magically influence them to do that, but I don't really know. I have some my lyrics that I incorporate into my latest project, I think they've been pretty, compared to what I was doing. Oh boy. Compared to what I was doing musically before with my band, the Archfiends, which was a silly horror punk band. I mean, this is Lex Naturalis and DCP have a little bit the kind of lyrics that are more, even if it's not always when I write lyrics, there's definitely some, I definitely keep my occult knowledge in mind and try to incorporate things like, in one song we talk about mon I and money, how those words are connected. And so, we'll talk about rights and freedom and just and then real issues and personal problems and things that it's just the type of things that you should be allowed to express if you're making music. And I think in the past I was kind of tied down to gimmicks and shticks and themey kind of bands, and now it's kind of more raw, and it's even less political. It's more just like the way it should be, like kind of like a Tool or Nine Inch Nails kind of, it's introspective, but it's also kind of aware, conscious, I'd say. So in the vein of conscious rap, but this is more conscious rock, so that's what I'm kind of trying to pioneer in my time, is especially with my solo project Lex Naturalis, is I think that's a good term for it. It's like conscious rock. I don't like the way that sound. It doesn't. I like the way it sounds, but I mean, I'm always gonna say that I'm a punk rocker, pop punker, and whatever. But conscious punk and conscious rock, they have that for rap. So I'm just trying to pioneer that and influence that, and so that's my contribution to the great work. It's veered away from podcasting quite a bit in the past couple of years, or year and a half or so. I've had some bad experiences with a great guest I had, Adam Finnegan. I had a great experience with him, but then a bad experience, and that he was the first video that YouTube had shut down. And of course I have that on my other channels, my Odyssey and BitChute, which I don't really update those as much. This wasn't something that I had followed through on completely with in my life. And I think Amazing Conspiracy Realist channel and Facebook page, I still update it, I still share things, and I share my music on it, and so I haven't been a total stranger. But yeah, in terms of putting out spoken word and content in the more traditional conspiracy research fashion, it hasn't been as much of that. For me, it's just for some reason I haven't been driven to do that as much as the music projects. And I've certainly it's always in the back of my mind, like, when am I going to get back to it? And I know how important it is, and I really wish I would have cherished that hermetic period more in my life, where I was really delving deep into the information so that I could one day soon broadcast it. And I did start to, and then things just started to come together for me socially and financially, and things were starting to improve in a lot of different ways in my life. In 2021 was kind of like the end of so much suffering. That year actually brought a lot of joy, and then 2022 is when I really started to pick up and start playing more shows and getting more involved in the music community, in an effort to also try to be a conscious rocker in the milieu. And so I think I've established, I don't know how conscious the people but people are digging it. It's not like I'm I thought that if I would come out with something that was openly say that I'm a conspiracy realist and that I'm into the occult, and I thought that it would get more flack, and then I have Antifa on my ass. But I think the music scene, it's interesting, because we talk about and Mark Passio and Brandon Martin have talked about, like, how punk rock and pop punk is kind of like the plastic and version of punk rock, and emo and pop punk are not real punk, it's pop. And there's, you could get into that, but it's just, for me, it's funny that the punk rock, or the subgenres that were influenced by it, it's like those subgenres like pop punk or emo, it's like I find that the people are way more interested in the artistic aspect of it, of the music, rather than using it as some sort of political action agenda. And a lot of times in punk rock, the political activism that goes on is really just more bullshit, and it's commie trash, and it's Nazi trash, and it's people that don't understand, that those are two sides of the same coin, and it's just misinformed dopes who watch CNN, who also happen to listen to some good punk rock. And so that's, and then so as I've gotten, because when I was younger, I really wanted to get more into, let's get more political punk rock, the more political the better. And then I realized a lot of those political punk bands are totally misinformed, just Antifa doofuses who really don't know anything about what's really taking place. And they still believe in the legitimacy of authority. They just want to be the authority. And so they're really just another control freaks who get infiltrated by Operation Gladio and the police all the time. And it's like some of them are aware of it, and are just shills, and other ones are just dumb and just sheep and following a herd. And so, I found salvation in the emos, at least, and the goths, and the more, grungy type of, scene. It's, they're just not as concerned with, like, it's not good that they're not, another extreme is not being concerned at all with worldly affairs, but, they're just less, it's, they keep the art separate from that, and not on purpose. It's just how the expression of post-hardcore and emo and pop punk and these things, that's just how it goes. Melodic punk too. And so I feel like this is a good little pocket for me to throw in some, occult knowledge, and positive messages about the human soul, and just the things that I've learned from people like Mark Passio, Michael Tessarian, David Icke, Maria West. These types of ideas and concepts that they're bringing to the table, and or de-occulting, try to pepper that in to, and I can't help but do it because it's just so, a part of who I am. And it's just, I thought more people would, in all areas of life, would be kind of following in these footsteps and stuff. But it's just it wasn't until I got older that I saw that there weren't Mark and Michael and others, or they weren't really gaining as much traction as I had projected that they would, or and certainly should. And so I had to come to terms with that my worlds are colliding, and I have to bring these worlds together. And so in 2021 and 22, I felt like I did that. Of course, 2021 is when I really launched ACRC, and I had some good episodes under my belt. And but yeah, like, I mean, now I'm kind of trying the live format, and so seeing how that works. And right now I feel real comfortable with it. I feel like it may not be a formalized presentation like I had planned, but I do want to discuss more about, because in debunking, in de-occulted number 6, I believe it was, debunking Darwinism, I went really heavy into the science, and that's a really formal presentation that you should definitely check out, because I go into scientific proofs against the actual theory of evolution, the way Darwin presents the idea of evolution, at least. And so, definitely check that out. And so this is just more to say, like, the consequences of this false science being, because it's like the establishment has its way of just only showing you that by just controlling the education system mainly. I mean, They're just only showing you certain ideas and saying that this is the model, right? But then there's just, there's so much more that they don't show you. And, when you're going in school, it's like they can't show you every single type of philosophy that was around. They can't teach you about metaphysics. I mean, you'll learn of these things in college, depending on what courses you take. And even then, I've even taken a course in witchcraft where they had the guy that taught it was not interested in witchcraft at all. He's just like, his whole thing was like, yeah, he had read the textbook about it, but he was more just like, this is just a class about what crazy people believe in. And yeah, it was lame, and so, you want to have someone who's cued in to be really teaching this stuff, and so, I'm just saying that, like, I think that it's like a mixture between cultural Marxism, social Darwinism, and materialist atheism. These are all things that were used in the modern times to get people to just not look in the areas that would lead them to the breadcrumbs of what really occurred in the past, which, if you want to look at some of the earliest texts, ever written, is Sumerian tablets talking about, from the sky, they came down and they had, what they described as like genetic banks, and it's like that's what Noah's Ark is. It's like, just because we as human beings didn't discover genetics until what, like, the 70s or whatever, like, we didn't, it always existed. So it's like, if there are beings out there who have advanced knowledge, they could have had it at an earlier point. And so, that's something that I, more formalized presentation, I'll go over. And maybe even what I think I should do is really just start at the basics. Because although I say that I have a lot of knowledge, I'm still a student of it. And I've been introduced to the concept and, gone over it a few times. But, it can't hurt to reread and go over it again. So I think a book report is in order, I think, to do justice to the entire subject. Because talking about how the consequences of social Darwinism is easy. I mean, I've kind of got into that, and that's why people are so misguided about the gender thing, whether they be on the left or right, or a homophobe or a transgender person. They all have it skewed because underneath their whole framework is a foundation that doesn't stand up because of the flawed science that I looked at in my de-occulted Debunking Darwin Part 1. And so because you have that flawed science, the whole thing just collapses. And so, part of a greater agenda of the dark occultist is to, falsify history, falsify our understanding of science, and this, gives people a false perception of the world. And then, so if you're awake, then they have a false perception of you, and that's the sad, tragic thing about the awakening process, is that everybody that you meet is going to have somewhat of a skewed, they're not going to view you the same way you view you. That's already going to be the case on a normal, like, life situation. But, like, in this situation, they're missing a piece of your being conscious and being awake and being aware of, what's actually taking place and what took place in our past. Like, the reason why we have this amnesia about this genetic manipulation and these cataclysms and these disasters and these, possible even resets of, we talked about the Tartarian thing, where it's like there's a whole other civilization that may have existed in more recent history, and then the history was falsified at a certain point where, it's like baby boomers are one of the biggest generations at the time, and it's just like, they were there was like a big push towards repopulation and population growth at a certain point, and then now there's like the push for population reduction. It's just so that's I've actually been looking a lot into Mind Unveiled's Tartaria Explained series. That's where my research is starting to come back online, because I was going to come on here and say that 30,000 years ago, there was a terrible cataclysm, and aliens came down and manipulated our DNA and made us more like them, and then told us that we're just animals. And so, because then there's the whole thing about the our ancestors not really being the Neanderthals, and the Neanderthals are really Bigfoot, and Bigfoot still exists, right? So there's the connection there, and then we have what we have to do as to help heal the gender divide and understand ourselves better is really understand that you're a spiritual being, spirit in the flesh, first and foremost, but being that the conditions that your spirit has decided, the challenge, this is what the earth is, the challenge realm, being a human being, and the human experience, that's part of the challenge of the soul. So the soul reincarnates into the human form, and the human form and the human world is a challenge as of right now, especially because of the falsification and the identity crisis that goes beyond just gender. It's an entire misunderstanding of self that's taking place, and religion stole that from us. So if you're still participating in one of the dark occult religions, and if you don't know what those are, then I definitely highly suggest that you look into my previous episodes. Watch What on Earth is Happening podcast from start to finish, or at least from episode 1 up and through, I think he's up to 250, somewhere around there. So start, learn from Mark Passio, and learn from the people that I'm talking about. And it doesn't mean you agree with what they say. It means that you just have the ability to just realize that this is new information for you, and that it's going to take a bit of time to process it, to see what you actually think about it. And mainly it's like, can you suspend your belief in authority, at least for a moment, to see what we're talking about in terms of there being a conspiracy. And so, yeah, I mean, if we had the understanding of our spiritual selves as masculine and feminine, and that I can choose to express my femininity outwardly if I want to, but still be masculine on the inside and have other masculine traits, or I can do the opposite, and I can be of either natural born gender as that, or I can choose not to. I mean, and I wish that the LGBTQ had a healthier understanding of gender, where they didn't say, "Oh, done with gender," or never identify. I'm just not really down with the whole they them thing. It's like, here you have a beautiful woman, and it's like she's like, "Oh, don't associate me with women. I don't want anything to do with that." It's like, well, why not? Has the misogynist gotten to you this weird way, where now you have to be like, no, I'm not a woman, I'm a them. Like, I don't want to, what is a woman anyway? Like, I've heard that phrase. Like, no, like, there is such thing as a woman, there's such thing as a man, and then there's people that like to, like I said, they express gender differently, because that's how they balance their masculine and feminine. Androgyny used to be a thing. It used to be like, well, like, I'm someone who's like, yeah, I'm bisexual technically, but way more into women. So I'm just, essentially a dude, who identifies as a dude, and I like to do some things that are a little bit on the more girly side. And people want to put down that, oh, don't say girly, don't say that you're like that. Well, some things are. It's a little bit more glamorous. It's a little bit more just something that normally would be something women would want to do, And I don't think there's anything wrong with that if it's done everything in moderation, you know. And I think that some people that are born as men, it's just they would feel better if they lived out their life as a woman, and so they are transsexual woman, which is not the same as a biological woman. It's someone that had a sex change. Used to be, used to technically still a man, but is, choosing to live a lifestyle of that which resembles more of a woman. And you can't define what that is. I mean, anymore. And it's like, it's not saying a woman should do this. It's just saying like, this is the behavior observed by a group of people known as women over time. Not by men, but by just social scientists of all varieties. But we can't, not as a collective conscious, they're not smart enough to even come to that anymore. People don't read anymore. I hardly even read enough anymore, and that's part of the problem. That's why I wanted to do this show, was to sit myself down and read more and, you know, give the people book reports. And I haven't done that. I've done interviews, I've met people, I've conversed, and we've had a lot of great exchanges and stuff, you know. And then I've been kind of on hiatus, and so it's like I haven't done the thing that I really set out to do with this. And it's just, I'm 32 years old and I still have plenty of time. And I used to think time was running out, especially during the COVID days. And, you know, maybe I will soon, and that crisis, whatever it may be, will light a fire under my ass just like it did during the COVID thing. But I think that, I think this is good. And I think that, I feel very natural in this kind of format. And I hope that this sounds good and, everything's kind of going off without a hitch. But, there's going to be glitches, there's going to be errors, there's going to be all kinds of stuff that I'm going to want to fix later. Like, I'm worried about how loud that monitor is. And I hope I didn't ruin it for you, but... So, what else? We're talking about gender. I think that truthers out there, it's just, I think that now we're going to really get into what I really wanted to talk about. So we've gone over, genetic manipulation and, the whole, it's like the interference theory versus the Darwinian theory. It's like the interference theory doesn't even get any airtime. And so the Darwinists have no idea what it even is and wouldn't even entertain it. So it's like people are stuck in their religious ideologies, dark occult religious ideologies, because that's what social Darwinism is. It's not there for factual reasons. It's there to suppress other information. And so therefore you have also the Tartarian historical amnesia situation that I'm still looking into more. But of course, even if there's no Tartaria, there's still mystery, things about our history that we're not told. And yeah, I believe there was at one point a global civilization that was more based in natural law, and that didn't require government, but still had advanced technologies and advanced processes. And we can see evidence of this all over the world, whether or not, and so for me, it's like whether or not it was called Tartaria or whatever, Lemuria certainly would be is the original name for this place. And so, I believe that history is, especially in the architecture that we see, we see sacred geometry in the architecture of the ancient, now I call them ancient churches, I didn't always, but the structures in our towns that we call these grand churches, you got to look at some of the engravings in that, and some of the sacred geometry you see in that. It may not all be coming from the dark occultists that created that church and false paradigm religion. It might actually be an older structure that's been refurbished, that's been there since ancient times. And I just think that's fascinating and refreshing information after, that, doldrums of COVID, and having to learn about viruses and just try to figure out what is disease, and, is it psycho, spiritual, physical, what's going on with that. And it's just nice to be able to come back to a place of, like, let's look back into history, let's look into the mystery, let's try to remember who the fuck we are again. Like, I think that's the real spirit of, Lex Naturalis. It's remembering itself, and then experiencing good and evil, and learning to overcome evil, more importantly. And so, you know, and I will tell you that I do have moments of anger and despair and hatred and rage, and it's just that for some reason when I get into my loungy kind of mode at the end of the day, it seems that all my fears and troubles are kind of calmed. And so I wish that I could you could get the pissed off version of me today, but I'm feeling pretty good about things. And one thing I haven't been feeling too good about is the state of the podcast, and that I should be doing more. I should be taking Mark's courses and really learning more about videography and how to promote, and it would help my music career too if I did these things. It's just currently still working a slave job, and just trying to getting distracted, and I think what I wanted to segue into, actually one of the main things I wanted to discuss here before I forget, is that, like, a lot of my behavior, inconsistent behavior with my research and ability to publish material and do it in an effective way and in a consistent way, it comes from, like, a struggle that I've had, starting in 2017 with what is my love life and romantic life going to look like as an awakened person, as someone who's an awakened to the satanic epi-eugenics agenda that Mark had talked about, and to the fact that I'm entering into a world of socially engineered women, but still feeling very much in love with the idea of being with a woman for the rest of my life, and finding a soulmate, or just finding someone just to be in a relationship with, to have that connection with, and obviously just I am kind of a womanizer at times, and, like, yeah, like, I mean, I own my attraction to women and even men and transgender people at times, and so it's like I want something, but it's because of that special connection that I crave it, and so it's just it was a tough thing. I didn't have a hard time accepting a lot of the truth that Mark brought out in his presentation, The Unholy Feminine, and the Satanic Epi-Eugenics Agenda. Like, that was those revelations and that research he did, like, all that was a really hard thing for me to stomach, and I think I've said it on many podcasts, probably every podcast. And so it's the processing of that, coupled with really learning about what had happened in the past in terms of the suppression of knowledge and the suppression of better civilizations and better ways of doing things. It's the disappointment and the despair and the just apathy I sometimes feel. I would hate for it's like the atheists, the materialist atheists, that breeds apathy. But for me to be apathetic because of some very dark information in regards to the conspiracy and the way things are in the current human condition because of what has happened, I've been in states of despair and apathy about that, and people's inability to ever see it and for it to ever get better. And maybe my love life, my relationship life is doomed because of the social engineering that's in place. Is it going to cause me to lose that connection forever with women? And for the first time, this is where 2023 has been a game changer, because for the first time since 2017, I have finally come out of that and realized that, there is a way around those social programmings, and I could still be with, you know, the girl of my dreams. Or if I just want to have fun and meet some friends and, have a good time, there will be time for that too. And it's not like the social engineering, it's powerful, it's strong, but you are more powerful as a man than that. And if you, and it sounds cliche and it's going to sound tacky, but I think it's as simple as, if you know how to flirt with a woman the right way, you can unlock the keys to her heart. And so I think we get confused when it comes to initial attraction to women. Like, there is certain things that we have to do, not games, but like you don't have to wear a mask and be fake, but there are certain things and ways of being and modes of expression that you could bring to the table when you're trying to create the initial attraction that will work better for you than, you know, certain things that you've done in the past that a lot of guys do that just doesn't create attraction for women, because naturally women are going to be attracted to you over time, over a period of time. I mean, certainly they have their, oh yeah, certainly, oh, I know that guy's hot, but it's not like I'm super attracted to him, because for them it's just like, it's more important to have that connection and know that that guy is a really, has a, also strong inner core as well. And so, at least authentic, women will think in those terms, or at least it's kind of just naturally hardwired into them to think in those terms. And then, of course, the social Darwinists come in here and try to say, oh, well, all they care about is the hierarchy and this and that. And certainly, like, that can help move things along, too, when you know about the programming of social Darwinism in the back of your mind, and throw that in there, and you can, and so, but it's, so far, the reason why I say this is because, I've tried to just see if, instead of just putting all the focus on it's women and their inability to not be fucking mind controlled, I want to do what I'm supposed to do also, and say, yeah, it part of the problem is, what's happening out there, but what can I change in here? And so I've decided that I found a dating expert coach person who does come at it from a spiritual perspective, or at least has that ability, if he's working with those types of clients, to, think in those terms. And so that's great. It's been great for me, and he's proven to me that I was wrong about a lot of things, not about the social engineering, but that it's impossible to get around that, and there are certain just classic things, and you could say they're triggers, but it's, that'll just help make the woman feel more comfortable around you. And a lot of it is just banter, it's just being playful, it's just making little wisecracks that just kind of show that you're kind of a class clown, that you're kind of a goof, but not too much. You're a classy goof. And part of it is well dressed. I mean, when I was doing a mistake for a long time was like, it's like, for some reason, just letting it go, and just like, oh, like, these pants, they're too big for me now, or like they're a little bit too, they don't fit me 100% right, so I wear a belt just to keep them up, and because I got the wrong size at the store and I never returned it, and it wasn't, and it's not, I'm not totally swimming in it, so they're just baggy. What's the big deal? So what I wore is baggy pants a lot of the time, and sometimes I would see myself in pictures and be like, I don't know, there's something off, like I thought I looked cooler than I did, and there's something off about it. So what this guy taught me is as simple as like, you don't want to, guys and for girls, even with girls, it's like you don't want to buy pants that aren't slim fit. You know, it's like regular fit. Maybe I don't know if it works for some people, as long as, or in other words, you don't want to buy any clothes that don't get, make sure they're 100% fit and tailored and trimmed, and because that's just appealing to the eye. And then I realized, you know, I was like cross dressing a lot a couple of years, like a year and a half ago, or maybe 6 months ago, or even still sometimes. What am I saying? But I did it because it's just like I feel like I wasn't, the way I dressed didn't reflect like and show all my what I had to offer, you know. And it's just like, but when you wear the clothes that fit, then all your goods, like everything you got, like your, you know, where your physique, you can really show it off. And so that goes a long way, you know, for initial attraction. And initial attraction is what creates the deeper attraction. So you have to start in kind of a shallow way to get into the deep end. And that's where I think most people are tripping up with, because it's a natural, you know, I'm sure that for the Tartarians, Lemurians, previous better civilization, this was all a more natural process and it just came easier and just flowed. But for us, nothing flows. Everything is, you know, the aliens, they just come in and like take it like an egg scrambler and scramble your consciousness all in a million pieces. And that's what trauma does, and fragmentation of the mind. So, you know, so that's really it. And so I am going to say now that I'm not ashamed of who I am and what I'm doing for help. And so if I could get over this hump of dating and romance versus the satanic epi-eugenics agenda, if I could get over that, it's a victory for all of us. And I could tell my story and tell, you know, about how I found the person that I found with the, and still able to keep my dignity of holding on to the torch of doing the great work, and, you know, helping people learn about the gender divide and how to heal it, and learn about the principle of gender so that they can understand themselves better. I mean, this is what's really important. And then if I could have a partner that supports me in that, and I can actually accomplish that goal, man, like then I'm really gonna feel even more motivated to do even more and put myself even more out there. So, you know, I think in 2021 and 22 I had some early beginnings. 2022 there were some disappointments. Like I said, the one channel, the one show with Adam Finnegan being taken down. Then I had a guest that I'd rather not name who just caused me a lot of emotional back and forth, just confusion, and it felt like gaslighting at times. And it's just, you know, 1 minute she was okay with me having the podcast up, the next minute she wasn't. She had issues with other people that were guests on my show for whatever reason, and it's like I wish this person all the best. And it just was a strange relationship. And the person that I'm not naming, it doesn't want the episode that I did with them aired on this show. At one point they did, but now they don't. And I respect their wishes, and it's not part of the show. And it was a strange experience, and I did feel like this person is more experienced than me, and it caused me to feel discouraged and not really pick up the old, you know, podcast, you know, wand and give it a shot. You know, I don't know what else to say about it. And of course there's Mark Passio, who, as great as he is, it's just a lot of the episodes, it's, you know, I feel like just listening to him, it's like, well, I'm not ready. I don't have the technology. I don't have the skill set. I don't have all the things he's talking about, so I shouldn't do it because of that. But that's not the right attitude either. It's like, I know I can muster up something, you know, good for the people with limited resources. I have a little bit of know-how, and, you know, I'm honestly shocked at most people that I run into have no idea how to search for anything on the internet, like even a little bit. Like I need, if I want to tell something about something that they could find online, I need to take their device out of their hand, like not like forcibly, but like I need to ask them, like, can you hand me your device and I will find this for you in 2 seconds. And So yeah, I think that I might not be as much of a Luddite as I think I am compared to most people out there. And yeah, I mean, I see a lot of stupid comments from people. I see a lot of stupid posts that really take away from. It's like we want to. Part of the agenda with gender is men and women misunderstanding each other and then not having great relationships with each other because we don't understand each other, because as a human collective we don't understand who we are because of the trauma and the amnesia and all the things I went over before, the false paradigms. But then you take a picture of a guy or girl like, looking like a rocker, dyed hair, tattoos, piercings, and you want to say, oh, that's automatically a leftist now. That's automatically a left winger, commie, whatever. Just because there are some people who dress like that are into that shit. But it's not everybody. I mean, there are certain people in every probably fashion style that you can find that are communist or whatever, atheist, Christian, Buddhist. It doesn't. There's a lot of styles out there of music and of dress, and people choose them, and there used to be certain movements started like that were maybe more on the left wing end of things. But punk rock was always a mixed bag, and I don't care what anybody says because I listened to thousands and thousands of punk bands in my life, and there was the entire human, you know knowledge pool is in that music. There's a punk band for every ideology and background and culture. So yeah, at the end of the day, it's a rebellion, but it's a rebellion of just, it's a musical rebellion in that, like, it was a certain sound and style that was not accepted before, that was gaining traction because it was, and it wasn't accepted at first because it was different and it was faster, and it's just Alice Cooper, Led Zeppelin style, Black Sabbath guitars with a surf rock beat. That's what punk rock is, and it was a revolution in music when it came out at the time. And I think it's still an art form that, if you have revolutionary lyrics that are legitimate, or rebellious lyrics, I should say, that are about legitimate rebellion, then that's a powerful force. Listen to Discharge, the song by Discharge, New World Order. That's a powerful fucking song. The hairs in your neck will stand up. You listen to that song. So you guys don't know what you're talking about. It's like, oh, this person's the problem. They have blue hair. You're an old fuck, and you probably still believe in fake ass Christianity. So fuck off. Have a good night, everybody.